Hey, all. Today we're going to talk about a disability that is probably the most familiar to of everything on our list, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as ADHD. So, what actually is it and how is it defined? So, it's characterized by excessive inattentiveness, hyperactivity, or impulsivity. So, these exhibit characteristics to a degree where they interfere with their daily lives and activities. And these characteristics are going to be present across multiple settings and prolonged over a period of time. So, what's considered when you do an ADHD diagnosis? Well, you need several symptoms that have got to be present prior to age 12. So, and these symptoms have to be present in two or more settings. So, things that are happening at home or at school or at work or with friends, during sporting events when you're participating on a team. And there's clear evidence that they interfere with or are reducing the quality of your social, academic, or occupational functioning. So the way you are just surviving in life. And these symptoms do not occur exclusively during some sort of other psychotic disorder, and they're not better explained by another mental disorder. So there's three main types of ADHD. There is inattention, and then there's hyperactivity and impulsivity. And then there's also the third one, which is a combination of inattention and hyperactivity, impulsivity. So the symptoms of inattentive behavior. So when you would get this as a checklist from a doctor's office or a pediatrician's office, and you'll be talking about the frequency of when events take place. And so when you're going through that frequency, you need a minimum of 6 symptoms have to be present for an ADHD diagnosis. And so some of the things you might see are the students will fail to pay close attention to details. They're making careless errors in schoolwork or at work or other locations. They have difficulty keeping attention when they're engaged in tasks or even playing. These students, they don't always seem to listen when spoken to directly, or they don't follow through on instructions. They're not finishing their schoolwork or chores or duties that are in the workplace. And then when you look at the idea of organization, so they're having trouble organizing tasks, but also activities. They avoid things or they dislike things that require a sustained mental effort. In other words, you have to think about things for a long time to get things done. They lose things necessary for school or after school sports. They are easily distracted by extraneous stimuli, and they're very forgetful in even what we would call daily activities. Now, and that's for the inattentive side. Now, there's also the hyperactive, impulsive behavior side. And to have this one, you have to have 6 within these categories. To have the combined, you'd need a total of 12. So for this one, when we're looking at hyperactive or impulsive behaviors, these are the students that fidget or tap their hands or squirm in their seat. They'll leave the seat when they're not supposed to be leaving the seat. They'll run around and climb all over the place when it's inappropriate. They don't play in quiet activities very well. They're considered to be on the go, all acting as if driven by a motor. Our son, we called him the perpetual motion machine. These students will talk excessively. They'll be the ones who are blurting out the answer before questions even finish coming out of your mouth. They have difficulty waiting their turn, and they will often interrupt others. So there is overlap between these. So you can be diagnosed with the combination. But in order to do that, as I said, you've got to meet the criteria for both. So we need those 12 symptoms, 6 in the inattentive and 6 in the hyperactivity impulsivity. So what does all this have in common? All of this is related to the idea of your executive functioning. And executive functioning, this is what allows us to plan and to self-regulate and to set goals and reach those goals. And the executive functioning is what inhibits some of those inappropriate behaviors. And so because these students have difficulty with executive functioning, they're going to have trouble studying and staying focused for long periods of time. They are going to be disorganized and forgetful, and they'll have sloppy, careless, or incomplete assignments and inappropriate classroom behaviors. They'll often have difficulty in social situations, which can lead them to have some peer rejection where they're not quite fitting in with those around them. However, it's not all bleak. This is amazing. Students with ADHD are out of the box thinkers. They are so creative. They are intuitive. They have a very strong emotional awareness. They're exuberant about life. They have non-standard approaches to problem solving. Like I said, they think out of the box. They're just creative. And when you look at entrepreneurs and inventors and artists across history, most of them will have ADHD. So we hear about it all the time, but how many students actually have this? According to the CDC, approximately 11% of children age 4 to 17 have ADHD. However, it's going to vary depending on the data that's collected and how they're actually defining it. But here's an interesting characteristic here. Boys are identified as having ADHD almost as twice the rate of girls. Now, does this mean boys really do have ADHD more, or are boys just more easily diagnosed because they tend to have that hyperactive component, which is easier to see? So ADHD and special ed services. Now, not all students with ADHD are going to require special education services. So it's really impossible to know how many students receive special education through ADHD, because oftentimes they'll receive it either under another category as their primary disability, or they'll receive it under OHI, other health impairment. But there's all sorts of other disabilities within that category. So it's really hard to know how many actually have that. So what are challenges these kids are gonna have if they have ADHD in our classroom? Well, obviously, we talked about it, impaired executive functioning. So difficulty sustaining attention and keeping themselves from doing those inappropriate behaviors. They often engage in risky or dangerous behavior. These students are more likely to be hospitalized or injured, often can't stop moving or being active, social difficulties with parents, teachers, and peers. And I chuckled on the hospitalized or injured because this was our son. I swore social services was going to be coming to pay us a visit because our child hurt himself so many times because he was always doing crazy things. No matter how many times we said, don't, no, he would do it anyway. And so, I mean, I remember our daughter's 5th birthday. You probably heard your parents say this, don't jump on the couch. I can't tell you how many times I said that. Jared was jumping on the couch and he fell and put his teeth through his lip. On our daughter's 5th birthday, my husband had to take him to the hospital and he got stitches through his lip down here. Another time, Jared, don't run in the house. He was running in the house, tripped, fell on our banister, had stitches coming up this way. Another time, Jared, don't stand on that chair. Standing on a chair, fell off, hit a spoon, stitches coming down this way. Another time, Jared was in Sunday school. My husband was preaching for adult Sunday school, and Jared had to use the bathroom, and his teacher told him, don't ever tell this to an ADHD kid, go ahead, run to the bathroom. He literally ran to the bathroom. He fell into the door jamb, and where the original stitches were, another set coming down. So these kids, they're going to be doing crazy stuff all the time, but they are so wonderful. They're amazing. So approximately 1/4 also are going to have emotional or other behavior disorders as well. And this can be anxiety, depression, oppositional defiant disorder, and sometimes they can exhibit aggression or other antisocial behavior. So what can you do as a teacher? Number 1, I bet you didn't guess this one. Universal design for learning. Again. Differentiating your instruction, having those highly motivated instructional materials in there, using assistive technology and adaptive behavior therapy and self-regulating strategies. Sometimes parents choose the medication route, but it isn't always necessary. And when you do choose medication, it's usually a stimulant that is what's done. But notice, only about 2/3 of children are on medication for their ADHD. So, what are some specific accommodations you can do? Advanced organizers for these students, having note takers, repeating the instructions for them, giving them visual cues, auditory cues. If you need to reduce noise, giving them headphones or study cubes, having a checklist for them of materials they need to complete, having a set of books at home and a set of books at school. It's a great idea. Uh, Take your assignments, your larger assignments, and break them down into smaller components. It's what we call chunking. So, other things that you can do when they have the hyperactivity, impulsivity. And these students, they're going to need physical movement. Allow them to stand at their desk. Assign them a quick task or an errand. Hey, can you run this folder down to Miss Smith down the hall? Give them breaks. And just your very presence near them is going to help with some of those behaviors as well. So, school services. Now, there really aren't any school services. Previously, they had behavior therapy or current medication or teacher structure because these tend to adequately address a child's needs. And we have 504 plans, and these are accommodations that eliminate those learning barriers. Sometimes students may have an IEP, and this is if it's negatively affecting their education and they need those specialized services. So, teachers, what do you need to do? Again, you want a comprehensive classroom management plan that you reinforce consistently. You want structure in your room with predictable routines that integrating UDL and differentiated instruction, teaching learning strategies for completing different tasks, using graphic organizers, demonstrating how you do this, and then showing the students working with them to do it, teaching them study skills, coaching students in organization and time management, and teaching them to use self-regulation strategies. Now, there is technology that can help kids with ADHD. First off, word processing softwares, spell checkers, huge for these students. And then programs that help them organize and structure essay or reports. If you have templates they can use, graphic organizers, note-taking programs, and interactive multimedia sites that accompany books. So there might be videos and read aloud text that go along with it. Some of the most fun you have in your class is going to be with this group of students.